Hey, this is Christian Buckley. I'm here with Bill, Chris, and Vesa talking about SharePoint Conference North America happening in May. And you can find out more if you follow at SPConf, the hashtag SPC18. How else? You follow the SharePoint tag. You can find information about the event, all those places. So we were talking about a couple different topics here. So we have here the internal content board that was helped involved in the planning of at least the Microsoft content side of things. But what was your involvement? Like, what was the process in starting to organize this from the Microsoft perspective?
So on our end, one of the key things we looked about is obviously each year we have a spring moment, and that's been May 4th and May 16th subsequent, respectively, when we announced our kind of vision, strategy, roadmap, and how we think about SharePoint moving into the next year. And this time around, my delivery just showed up. Hello?
So unprofessional. I know. So this, well, it's a cliffhanger. Tune into the next episode when Bill comes back and explains.
Okay, I will be right there. Yeah. Thanks. Guys, I gotta run. There is a freight truck sitting out front of the building, and we don't have a dock, so I have to go unload almost 1,000 pounds of crap by myself.
And it relates to
that's all the stack.
It relates to SharePoint conference.
Exactly.
I don't know if you want to reveal exactly why,
it's
but
the monkeys, the SharePoint monkeys. I've got a pallet of them sitting on a truck I got to go get.
All right.
I'll let you guys chat.
It's work business. All right, that's good. All right. What
thing on for you?
So we are disorganized. We seriously are disorganized as a content board. Chris, you want to continue?
This is like real life, people. It's actually happening. He's got monkeys on the truck. I mean,
can I answer the question seriously?
Yeah. No, go ahead.
So what we've been working with our outside track chairs. For me, it's with Asif and Ben Nolan. To kind of cooperatively look at the agenda from each side and to see, what information is being shepherded by the outside track chairs, to look at it and say, we can't actually break our NDA, but to say, I'm not sure that a deep dive in SharePoint 2010 is going to make sense relative to the things that we're announcing. And likewise, to give them some guidance as to how we're curating Microsoft content so that it feels like one unified event as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. It's always interesting because I know that some people think that, hey, you're MVP, everything that's happening with Microsoft. And
there
have been a couple events. There have been a couple events where, so I've been part of a very small subset of MVPs where we were given, kind of a preview 3-4 days in advance with some of the blog posts that were to come out. But even then, there were still decisions that could happen, like what could be there. And so, I mean, that also impacts what a keynote is going to be about, what the product teams are going to go and present. If, come that week in May, there's decisions are made, hey, we're going to hold back on these features, maybe release it later in the summer or in time for Ignite. And so it's interesting to go and look at that. And I think we saw, in fact, for the May 4th event 2 years ago, I was part of that team and we saw the early notes of what was going to be shared. And I think that copy changed 2 or 3 times.
Oh yeah, and that really comes down quite simply on engineering. So the May event has been super early, let's say, preview on what's coming and what will be then shown truly or announced in Ignite. And so it's been more around really early conceptual UI showing how things are actually working. And in some levels, it will be, well, hopefully much more mature this time around because it is actual conference and we want to actually go big and show those things. But even then, it might be that 2 days before the conference, there is a additional or unknown hiccup in certain capabilities and we need to still adjust that. Sure, we want to announce and show as much as possible, which is in plans right now, but you never know. There might be surprises. It's engineering, it's IT. So.
Yeah, I don't know if you were at the MVP summit, if you were in town for that. Do you travel to any of those? To many of those?
Yes, I do. I'll be in MVP Summit in 2 weeks.
So Chris, well, before you were...
Vesa is the Beetlejuice of the SharePoint world. Just click your heels together and say Vesa 3 times, and he shows up.
I'm just so I guess my question. So Chris, I know you weren't yet at Microsoft, so you were there as an attendee, as an MVP. But you remember when Jeff Teeper opened up? So was it 2 years ago, or I guess when he came back, the first one when he was back?
I was at Microsoft then.
I'm wondering if it was the earlier one. Remember, it was the one where he said, "Look, we were looking at all the things that we're talking about that are possibilities." And we thought, we could show you a little bit of the things that we know, or do we share with you things that we're thinking about that may never come to pass, but here's where we're going, so you see like our train of thought. And it says that Microsoft, the team came together and made a decision. We're going to show you all the things we're thinking about. And it was, for me, this having been to 7 years to these summits, seeing a change, that there was a change that happened in what was presented. There have been a couple of years where we've shown up and be like, we've seen all of this. You're presenting stuff that was shared at the last SharePoint conference or at Ignite. Mm-hmm. What's going on? And that's where we really started to see depth, and I see a lot of that. Part of it's coming with the more rapid release cycle, and all the innovation that's coming out, how fast that's coming out. But that it feels to me like Microsoft is much more open with sharing that information.
Right. So kind of having bridged the gap between being an outside MVP and I joined Microsoft 3 years ago. I think some of our openness realistically varies based on where we are in our planning cycle. We don't really have a 3-year planning cycle, but there is a de facto annual planning cycle. Occasionally, these disclosure moments happen like before we've launched the next year's planning and right as we're rolling up the last bunch of rollouts, so there isn't as much to share. Now, I look forward to SharePoint Conference NA. We're already, well into a planning cycle, obviously, for what we're rolling out this year. And again, I can tell you on the infamous lost recording of the road to SPCNA that, is available in bootleg form, something I said on that recording.
Well, it's on the DVD, so if you have to buy the full package, though, so yeah.
As I said, there are things which are last-minute changes, not just how we're describing things, but what we're actually able to show and tell. There's still always going to be a couple of things that we know that we're going to show to surprise you. And I can absolutely promise you there will be at least a handful of things that people will look at, even if they're under NDA, and say, I didn't know that was coming. We want this to be a compelling event and not just a repeat of, oh yeah, that was in a blog post 2 weeks ago, or they showed it at Build, or and there's value in repetition. We know that, for many of you out there, shockingly, you don't read every single thing that we write or every single thing that I ever say.
Well, Christian does. Mr. Buckley does.
I do. I catalog it. So every evening I'm like, Dear Diary, Chris McNulty today said.
Yeah, I'm still here. This is why Buckley Planet is a strange, strange world.
The gravity is very dense. Yes.
Coming back on this year's SPC and the announcement on the spring, one of the things what we wanted to do on the dev side is to kind of concentrate on the content itself. Sure, we have great sessions and breakouts from MVP side on a specific technical details and deep diving on the development topics. But then we also wanted to have this kind of end-to-end architectural sessions because the modern experiences are getting more and more mature. And people are not quite aware of all of the things what they can do. And especially in IT or in the development side and customization side, there's always a lot of questions on, okay, cool, I can do a widget, but what does it mean in a bigger picture? So how would I actually do an end-to-end solution or end-to-end customizations or portals within SharePoint Online, and what are the current limitations, what are the new announcements and all of that? So that was actually one of the internal themes around so marketing people, come on. So that was one of the themes on the development side and the customization side, that we wanted to, on top of these kind of a deep dive, isolated dev sessions, we wanted to have this kind of overview coverage as well. So that whenever you go back to work and start delivering solutions, then you are well aware of the end-to-end planning and the story, which is super, super important to understand. Chris, you probably would be amazed if I would disappear and surprise in your room.
Yeah, so
I just wanted to,
Jason,
speaking
I'm
of
gonna head over to your place right now. So, Chris, it's an overnight flight, so just leave this going. I'll be back.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Oh, well, if you think about the mission of the IT Pro, you know, you're usually challenged to be able to implement all of these solutions. So the more visibility we can give you into what to expect from a dev perspective, from a business user perspective, really is going to smooth the onboarding thing. That's why, you know, in addition, we have joint workshops that we're working on with our outside folks to make sure that if you're looking for a deep dive in implementation, we're making sure that we're preparing the MVPs who are delivering many of those sessions as well as sitting in ourselves. Wow, that sounded like something Bill actually might have said.
Yes, it does.
Well, that's, you know, my recommendation with these events, and I mean, look, there's so many different reasons to come and to find out about, you know, the new announcements and those things as well, but to come with the specific use cases of what you're trying to do and understand what am I not yet leveraging within the technology that I already own today before you start looking at those advanced features.
That ultimately is a business question, and let me answer that on camera 3.
Okay, all right.
Oh. Luckily, they're sitting pretty close to each other.
We need to hit him up with another IT Pro question after this, though. Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think to your point, it's really important to be able to translate all of this technology is there to solve a business goal. You know, one of our favorite MVP colleagues, Sue Hanley, says for governance, begin with the outcome and work backwards. So it's really important to understand across the board, what is the business looking to accomplish with this technology? That helps you retrofit your implementation plan, your training plan, and your plan for going to a conference like this. Bill, what do you think?
Well, from an IT Pro perspective, Chris, I mean, how would you answer that same question?
In Bill's office.
Yeah.
I do think the mission, and it's consonant for both IT Pro and developer, is not it should not solely be a one-way process. The business says we're looking to do this, go implement. Being exposed to technology and best practices also makes you an equal participant in the dialogue to suggest, have you thought about this?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, guys, I know there's a lot that we can go in and talk about here, you know, but I think we need to wrap this up because Bill, you know, eating up all the time there. Chatty Cathy over there. But Chris, Vesa, thanks a lot for your time. Bill, it's like the Clint Eastwood version of Bill there, the empty. But you know, definitely, if you've not yet registered for the SharePoint Conference North America, please go to sharepointna.com. Register today and come with your questions. Be ready for it. It's going to be an action-packed week. So thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.